Hey everybody, I just wanted to kind of show you a little bit of the process of how kind of framing up a story, or I'm sorry, framing up a page works. Because that's basically what I'm doing right now. This is just the framework that I'll build all the detail on and the color and everything. But, everything's by hand. That's part of the whole shtick with this book is that it's completely by hand. At least the production of it, like this part, like the creation of it. Obviously it's going to get digitized and sold, to people that want to buy it. And, I'm sure it'll be, I'm not against it being on a digital format, Kindle or something. It's an ebook as well. But yeah, I just wanted to show the process of making the book itself. It'll be 100% by hand, right down to making the panels and everything. And I just wanted to show you some of the process, how you do this. And, yeah, wanted to show you. It's a dying art. It's, would it be easier to bust out a book using some kind of AI program? Probably. I'm not a professional writer, but the story for this isn't super complex, so don't have to be. And like the whole process will be like, imagine what I'm doing is like, all right, I make the book first and I get it all pinned in and inked, not just like this, but with all the details and everything for black and white. Then I go take it down to the local print shop and I have it printed out in exactly the same size. Excuse me. From there, I color that because you want to keep your originals black and white. You always want to do that for if you want to alter them down the road or whatever. You always want to keep them black and white so they're original. But yeah, once it's printed out, then I color that one, and then when that one is all colored, I have another one printed out where I take all my different shapes and stuff where I've made the text that'll go in next to them and then in between and stuff like that. And I put that on there and I have that printed out again, and it'll be a fully done book at that point. See what I'm saying? Know what I mean, Burn? So that's the process that I'm doing. Is it long and tedious? Probably. Overly complicated? Probably. It's also my first book, and I'll figure out stuff as I go to make it less tedious and less of a pain in the ass. But yeah, pretty much, I could just basically go all the way with it if I wanted to. I could just take this, and then color this directly on the original. But then if I F it up or something, it's going to be not what I wanted. So that being said, the process is the journey, this is the art. A lot of people think what art is and they think it's just a finished product, and it's like, no, it's the creation of said product, so that you are creating, and bringing this into existence, and that's cool. Not saying that's not the same with computer graphics or AI or something, but I grew up in a time, I grew up in the 80s. I was born in the early 80s, and I grew up all the movies I watched and loved as a kid had all the old school practical effects, and were awesome. And then they started getting CGI, obviously, with Jurassic Park, shit like that. And it started taking over, and there was that sweet spot in the early 90s, in mid 90s, where every movie had that perfect match. I'm sorry, perfect mix of CGI and practical effects. And I think that was the perfect time. And if you go back and you watch a lot of those movies, they hold up great today, compared. And then kind of like in the early 2000s, they started really kind of going a little overboard, especially with like movies like the prequels, which aren't bad actually, and actually a lot less a lot less of the prequels are CGI than you think. A lot of people think, oh, the whole thing is CGI, it's bullshit. And it's like, actually, a lot less of it is than you might realize. And I was fooled too. Years later, I watched like a making of it and realized, like, holy smokes, a whole ton of that movie, a lot of the stuff I thought was CGI isn't. And the cool stuff is, like, now you see how I'm pinning over my penciling, right? And then you'll see how it looks a little crowded right now, but you'll see when I'm done. And look how it brings it to life. You know what I mean? Isn't that cool? But yeah, so it's like I'm not dissing AI or computer graphics or people that can do it because I sure as shit can't. I mean, I'm a moron on a computer. I gotta hire somebody to make me the right size PDF file for Christ's sakes because I keep messing it up. Or my books would be published by now, you know? And it's like, son of a bitch. So it's like, I'm not dogging anybody who could do that. To me, it's amazing, you know? But, yeah. I just want to keep the art alive, though. The ability to create is a human thing, you know? And it's something we need to keep alive. All kinds of art, not just this, not just, illustration or whatever, but any of the physical arts that we do, you know, music, ceramics, pottery, embroidery, you know, even fashion design and shit like that, you know. I got to appreciate all that going to school. So now you see in the foreground, you want to have the stuff wants to be a little, you know, the pin mark should be darker in my opinion, you know, and obviously in the background you're going to want stuff that's a little lighter, like it's in the background, you know, so it's going to be not as pronounced, you know. So take a 0.2 millimeter pin here and we'll make the trees and the bushes in the background. And the idea is I want this planet that he's on to be super colorful, you know. Super colorful. And it looks a lot cooler once you erase the pencil underneath. You'll see in a minute here when I'm done with this page. I just wanted to demonstrate the process of putting a page together like this. And like I said earlier, this is just the framework. This is just what I'm going to build on, you know, and then the details and the shading and all that kind of stuff follows. So the crazy alien trees in the background, and there it goes. But yeah, and it's like you could make a story in AI in like 5 seconds, you know. I get that. And who knows? Maybe I would, if I had the money, I could probably come up with some cool AI stories. You know, I've seen people make like AI stories about like Star Wars and stuff, fan fiction, and you know, it's a little rough around the edges, but it's not the fault of the story. The story is solid. It's just rough around the edges because of the technology that they're using. You know, that's all. And once they perfect that, like, people will be busting out movies all the time. Just because they'll be able to. And it's like, I'd be down with that. I'd be down with making some movies like that. But it's like, I also want to keep this alive, though. You know, it's important. Art, you know, and the power is not always going to be there. You know, one good smack of a solar flare and we could all be sent back into the freaking Stone Age, you know? So I think it's important people realize that. And it's like other cultures aren't doing it, you know. If you go over to Japan and China and a lot of the Asian countries, they still have that, you know, doing the brushwork with the traditional brushwork with the lettering and their traditional characters, which are freaking awesome. So it's like, you know, what are we doing? I will admit, though, it is easier to make a living if you know your computer stuff. And it's like, you know, I can tell you that much. So it's like, just at this point in my life, am I starting to throw at this, you know what I mean? Because after college, it was 2008, and the economy sucked, and then I worked for a bunch of years to pay off some debt and shit, and then I had a kid, and went out to North Dakota, and worked there for several years, and then just came back, I got custody of my kid, and I'm like, well, shit, now I should start doing it. So here we are. Looking up. We're all looking up at some creature up here. What is it? They've teleported to this faraway star system. So they don't, and they've crashed, and they don't know what the hell's going on or anything about the planet, or its inhabitants. So we're all looking up and at whatever's up there. Yeah, and on the background, I'm watching this dude I watch, German in Venice. He's cool. He's another person that goes around and talks about LA and all the cool stuff about it and some of the not so cool stuff about it. It's too bad. It's like I grew up out there in Riverside, and it's sad to see that LA has become kind of crazy and insane. And I mean, it's not like it was perfect when I was out there by far, but it's like their politics have really fucked the state up, in my opinion, at least. I don't know. Sure seems like it at least. And then they just turn around and blame Trump, and it's like, well, Trump wasn't even there like years ago when you guys signed up for your monorail to nowhere, and it's just insane. But as long as people are in that media induced trance of hating Trump and all that, they're never gonna get out and start holding their fucking officials, responsible. Look at the place. Look at the homeless everywhere. The trash and shit. It's insane. And the price, on top of dealing with all that shit and the drugs, it's, costs $1 zillion to live there. It's just crazy. I don't understand. Call me old fashioned, but I just don't get it. You got everything out there in California. You got the weather. You had the opportunity, but the politics again have run a bunch of that out of town. So it's just crazy. And it's like, I'm usually not too political. I try to stay out of it these days. And I'm in the middle, so I piss off everybody. You're like, oh, pick a side. But it's like when you're in the middle and more libertarian, then you can see what's going on with all of it. And you realize that neither party is perfect. And it needs to be some kind of combination of the two, the way it used to work. But it's like, everybody's fucking crazy these days, so it doesn't work anymore. That's unfortunate. You see places like LA, beautiful LA, getting basically just torn apart by policies. Stupid ass policies. And it's like, that sucks. Same with New York, that new mayor convinced everybody that he can do everything. Whatever you need to happen, I'll do it for you. Just vote for me. And it's the oldest damn trick in the book. And it's like, shit, man. As far as I'm concerned, they should make an AI that makes another AI that makes another AI that's totally removed from human input. And that AI should just run everything, because we can't do it as a species. We're too corrupt. The best people get corrupted. And there's all sorts of ways to corrupt people. A lot of people think corruption is just like, here's your bag of money, do what I want. No, there's all sorts of ways to corrupt people. You can just go to somebody and say, look, I'm going to tell the news that you're a pedophile, or I'm going to, it'd be horrible if your kid fell down on their way home from school on this bus. It's like, there's all sorts of ways to get people to do what you want. And I'm sure a lot of that happens in politics. I'm just, it's just crazy that we've let it get to this point. And then everybody hates each other now. Everybody hates everybody. You could be having a perfectly fine conversation with somebody, and as soon as they say, like, oh, I voted for Trump, or I voted for Kamala, it's like, what? I don't know. Like I said, I try not to get too political. I just like sticking to the art, but a lot of art is political. One of the things I wanted to do was one of the things I did, my thesis, if that's what you want to call it, they call it final project in art school, but my thesis was like a bunch of socio-political stuff. And this was back in like 2006, 7, 8. So it was Bush and Obama and their policies that I was railing on in the war in Middle East and shit like that. I do like doing that kind of stuff. Socio-political, though, where it's not It's not political illustration where it's just like somebody throwing a pie at somebody's face or just making fun of them for some scandal. It's more about society and what's going on with society, man. And that kind of stuff I like doing. You know, there's no target in that. I mean, I guess there is, but it's not party affiliated, you know? It's more of a, you know, society. Society. This flying four-winged creature here. But yeah, it's just from what I see in California, it doesn't look like it's gotten better. It looks like it's gotten worse from when I was living out there. Not just between what I see on like the German in Venice, but you know, there's another guy I watch, John Hicks, and then just watching the damn news, you know, just looking around at all the shit going on. It's crazy. And I'm not trashing it. I'm not saying fuck it, they deserve it, vote blue no matter who. But I am going to say that voting has consequences, and either the right people keep voting for this shit, because I can't believe that your average people hate Trump so much that they would just vote themselves into oblivion. So it's got to be mainly all the rich assholes in that state. All the movie stars and, you know, those type of people who are, it's crazy, like they're all anti-capitalist, but they're wearing, you know, fucking $5,000 pair of shades, Gucci bag, $1 million car. Oh my god. And people buy it. I can't fucking believe it when I see it. I'm like, what the hell? Can't you not see what they're doing? I don't know. I don't know, people. I don't have the answers. I wouldn't want to have the answers because then I would be responsible. But, yeah. On other news, the fires in Canada, the smoke that was here. I live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, so I'm like right across the lake from Thunder Bay and all Ontario and all that shit. And the fires are really chilled out. Like the smoke, it's still like kind of smoky. You can like still taste it kind of, but it's a lot better than it was, which is good, you know. And here was the rough draft for the picture I'm doing right now, the illustration, you know. And I made a couple little changes, but just so you can see the whole process. And yeah, the fires have chilled out, and that's cool. But it's still kind of smoky, you know, tasting outside, I guess, would be the best way to put it. But, you know, Canada needs to figure that shit out, too. A lot of, you know, fires happen, I get that. And when I lived out in California, it happened. And I don't know, it's in a lot of these states that have a lot of corruption. Think about it, you know, Minnesota, California. A lot of these states have a lot of corruption, you know, like the Somali, you know, learning centers and just all this bullshit. You know, like in Canada, for example, Doug Ford, the premier of Canada, took out like $48 million in the fire budget for this year to put towards, you know, social services. And so that's just one thing, you know. And it's like, I'm sure that $42 million could have been used good here in, you know, or up there even in Canada for water bombers and all sorts of shit, but they didn't. And they're sending money to Ukraine all the time, and that's a whole nother fucking can of beans. I get that Putin attacked. I understand that part, but there's a lot of wheels moving behind that, in my opinion. And it's horrible, you know. You see these guys getting dragged off the street by the fucking recruitment police to go get drone bombed, killed in the Ukraine, you know. Just abduct dudes off the side of the road while they're walking their dog. And it's like the dudes that are abducted, a van will roll up and like 5 guys will jump out and just fucking grab a guy, you know, if he's not 100 years old or a kid, and throw him in this truck. And it's like all the people doing that are the sons and brothers and fathers and shit of important people. So they're not on the front line, but they're doing their military service by dragging your poor ass into a truck to go die on the front line in fucking Ukraine somewhere. So I have mixed feelings about the war in Ukraine. I understand that Putin started it. I get that. I'm not arguing that. That's what people always say. Putin started, and it's like I get that, but it's like Ukraine's dragging it out. Ukraine, before we got involved with Ukraine, was voted by the UN and all these organizations that the Bleeding Hearts love to be the most corrupt country in Europe and one of the most, like in the top 5 in the world. And now we're sending fucking zillions and billions of dollars to them. They've had no elections since the whole thing started. Zelensky has ceased elections. You know, we had elections during World War II, you know? He goes around hat in hand all these countries that, you know, countries like Canada that I was talking about that can't even afford to do anything, and their medical system is a fucking wreck, even though they always brag about it. Sure, it's free, but it's like, I would rather pay and get seen than have it be free and wait to die. Or be forced to take the MAID, you know, medical assistance in dying thing. More people died of MAID last year in Canada than like anything else. You know that? Isn't that crazy? And most of them are white people. So these stats are out there, man. If you don't believe me, you know, these are stats I look at and I go, wow, that's crazy. But it's, you know, it's a liberal's paradise. They got the drugs everywhere. They got the programs for everybody that don't help them, just keep them in the loop. And I don't know, man. To me, that's no good. You know, harm reduction. It's like, are you fucking serious? I don't know. So it's hard. It's hard not to have an opinion on that shit. My opinion, in my opinion, it's hard not to have an opinion. And I have an opinion about everything. So, but yeah, to me, that's not helping anybody. I don't know. All it does is create a society of zombies. You know that. And then it's a perfect storm. You know, you go up to Canada, it's like they make all the drugs legal. They make it illegal for you to defend yourself, even in your own home. Okay, they really do. And then the police can't respond to anything. So if you're shoplifting or burglarizing or any of this shit, they're not even going to do anything. So it's fucking crazy, you know? I don't know, man. The world needs some work. And I'm not sitting here saying Trump's a fucking angel. He's a fucking asshole too. I'm paying $4 a gallon for gas. It's like, what the hell is the difference, you know? That's shit that matters in my life. So if it's like, it doesn't seem to matter. If Biden's in there, it's $4 a gallon. And if Trump's in there, it's $4. It's like, it doesn't matter because that's the shit that affects me. The Iran war doesn't affect me. I'm sorry. It doesn't. You know, there's the Jews in Israel, but yeah, that doesn't affect me. Mamdani doesn't affect me. You know, the fucking crazy socialist mayor in Seattle that's ruining that city, that doesn't affect me. Gas prices do, food prices do, and Trump hasn't done much to help that out. So it's like, fucking, I'm not saying he's awesome either. I guess what I'm saying is that we all need to figure out that it doesn't matter who's running shit. They're not on our side. You know? In America, we treat politics like football. You know, we all have a team and a side. And then the other side is fuck you, you know? So, yeah, you see, I gotta put this, because this down here they're making is a shadow for this flying creature right here, and the tree is closer, so his thing's gonna be a little bit bigger right there. Perception. Yeah, I don't mean to get into like a political rant, you know, or a fucking sociological rant, but it is fun to do sometimes. I mean, like I said earlier, I was going to be or still do like doing socio-political illustrating, and like anybody else, I do have an opinion on politics, you know, and but yeah, now we've inked in this whole page right here for the framing, and then I'm gonna let it sit for a second. Wow, 24-minute video, holy smokes, I didn't think it'd be that long. And then I'll erase it, and then you'll see the results. But I gotta give it a second, let the ink sit in for a second. But yeah, man, it's crazy. I was just showing some other people. I just made a short about something else. I got this this thing I'm gonna do. I do some of these doodles just for shits and giggles about the shape wars, and I'm gonna make a little short strip about the shape wars. Those are funny. But yeah, this is the process. I think we can start erasing on the top. So basically just wherever there's a line, but you gotta be careful. You gotta put your hand down on it, otherwise you can erase and just bend the whole page over, and it's fucking lame as shit when that happens. So, and you gotta use certain pins too. Like I found out the other day, luckily it didn't ruin a page, but this fancy pen that I bought, that's a double-sided, nice Japanese writing pen, I erased and it was like, smeared. Like, oh, I was like, I couldn't believe it. So basically, I just been using these cheap pins from Walmart. They're nice, but they're cheap. They're just like $10, you know, for King's or whatever, and they work great. I just get the pack that has, you know, several in it, several sizes. See, start erasing those pencil lines, and it looks a lot different. You know, this is where we want to kind of hang on to the page. We don't want to get up there in the corners. Are the most notorious for bending on you when you're erasing. Yep, and you just erase the pencil right underneath it, like such. Very good. And that's all there is to it, and Bob's your uncle. Just erase it like such. Looks good. We don't have all the stuff behind it. Yeah, it looks good, looks good. And every day I plug away at this. You know, I got my kid full time and I work and all that shit, so yes, I'm not spending. I beat myself up because I'm like, you should be working on your book, but I'm like, oh, I'm lazy and I got a headache, my back hurts, I want to sit on my ass for a little bit, you know, and I gotta get up, I gotta get on my ass about it because no one else is gonna do it. So that's what I try to do. All right, erase that part. Now we shall erase this part with the lines first. Yeah. And it's like, this is labor intensive, but like I said earlier, that's part of the charm to it. You know, it's like fixing an old car. You know, it's not just about repairing the machine. It's the art of knowing how to repair the machine and the processes. You know, you ask a heroin junkie or somebody like that, you know, you talk to them about heroin, and you're like, so what was it? What did you like about it? And they'll tell you a lot of times that they liked the process. They liked taking it and putting it in a spoon and boiling it down and filtering it and all that shit, and putting it in a needle and doing that, instead of just like smoking it or taking a pill or some shit, you know. And there is some weight to that, in my opinion. I'll just leave that there. But yeah, and no, I've never been a heroin junkie. But I've known a lot of people. I've bartended for years, and I've known a lot of idiots in my life. Alright, I'll be right back. I'm gonna get rid of these remainings. Yeah, and as you can see, there's always a couple little touch-ups you gotta do. And then the page looks a lot better, looks a lot crisper, as you can see. And there we are. And thank you for swinging by today and enjoying my rant on several topics and watching me do the book. Swing by sometime and check it out. Let me know if I should do more of these longer videos.